So my name is Teresa Zamora, and I'm from Mi Familia Vota here. I'm the regional coordinator for Stanislaus area in this region. But first off and foremost, thank you all for being here. Tonight's presentation on redistricting and the work that's being done by the California Citizens Redistricting Committee. Tonight, we and our partners had invited you all to participate in this meeting. We felt it was very, very important, especially since the US Census has concluded. The redistricting process may start in your county. I know in Stanislaus County, it needs to go in front of our Board of Supervisors, which I believe is next week for approval. It's a regular process of adjusting the lines of voting districts in accordance with population shifts. So we will have room for questions at the end. For those of you who have questions for our presenters, I'd like to present here, introduce our presenters. We have Commissioner Angela Vasquez from Los Angeles County and Trina Turner from San Joaquin County. Thank you both for being here. We feel this is very important and pertinent information for us, but also for our community members. And we'll like to do introductions with Angela Vasquez first.
Good evening, everyone. Angela Vasquez. I am one of the 14 commissioners on a Citizens Redistricting Commission. I'm a Democrat from Los Angeles. I am a social worker and children's health activist during the day and moonlight as a commissioner during these evening presentations. Good to be with you all.
And I'm really excited about being here. I'm Pastor Trina Turner, one of the 14 commissioners. I reside in Stockton. I'm also a Democrat. And Commissioner Vasquez and I both, we're going to represent this area of the Central Valley. And we are one of the 14 selected to draw our new lines for the 2020 census, following the 2020 census. So before, are you ready for me to, can we go, Teresa, are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So before we begin the formal presentation, we want to, first of all, just talk to you a little bit about the process. In this redistricting basics presentation, we're going to go over who the commission is, what we do, and how you can get involved in the process. So if you can bring the slides up now, I'd appreciate it. All right. And you all hopefully will have a lot of familiarity with the wedrawthelines.ca.org. We're going to be referring you back there quite a bit. But if you could now go to slide 2. At the top, there's a reminder that we want to make sure we tell you that per California Government Code section 82533, that we cannot communicate, and matter of fact, we're strictly forbidden as a commission and a staff from taking any public input outside of a regularly scheduled commission meeting or an official public input meeting. So though some of you may already know exactly how you want your lines drawn for today, we're not able to take that information. However, at any point that you want to submit your community of interest, go directly to the wedrawthelines.cal.org, and you will be able to see the instructions on how to do so under the public comment section. Slide 3. So let's get into it. What is redistricting? We're in a COVID moment, so we're online, but I just wonder if you all could show thumbs up or something. Who already has some familiarity with redistricting? Who knows what redistricting is? Just kind of get a sense. I'm looking through. I see you, Destiny. Good. Yep. Okay. Christian, love you. All right, Eduardo. Okay, cool. Pretty good, pretty good. So it will be a review for some, and for some, this will be brand new information. Redistricting is about drawing and redrawing boundaries that determine which voters are represented by each electoral district. This is what we're going to be talking about today. We're trying really hard to make redistricting sexy, but it's rather challenging. Redistricting, again, defined as drawing boundaries, right? So in other words, every 10 years we get counted for the census, and immediately after we redraw political districts using that data. Districts are determined by the number of people that live in each community. So why is it important? Your voice. Why is your voice important? One of the greatest powers that the people of California have is to elect their own representatives to conduct the business of their government. How the district boundaries are configured can make the difference between empowering and maximizing the voters' voices or minimizing and muting those voices. In other states, politicians redraw lines. We know that, right? We draw districts. Redistricting has been used at times to exclude communities from political power. By fully participating in and monitoring the upcoming redistricting process, underrepresented communities may have the opportunity to elect candidates of their choice and voice their needs and interests. So speaking up about your community is critical to ensuring district lines are drawn to keep your community whole to the extent possible. So this is going to ensure that your voice is heard by your elected leaders when making such decisions as the quality of funding and funding of your child's education, or determining your tax rates. So your input is valuable in shaping the new political boundaries. Slide 6, please. Why we draw district lines. So why are we redrawing lines every 10 years? Every 10 years. And it's important to note that it changes every 10 years. So it follows right after census, right? All that data is used to draw the new maps, and it accounts for population shifts across the state. So a couple of things happens. First of all, there is reapportionment that happens, whereas the federal reallocation of the House seats among the states. And then there's fair representation historically. Like we said a minute ago, those maps have been drawn by elected officials. The former system undermined the concept of fair representation. So this is why California, we had our first redistricting in 2010. There were laws that were changed to ensure that this is put into the hand of a fair party, which is us, that represents you, the California community. Next slide, please. These are some of the reasons. So the district need to be drawn. There are some elements of redistricting that we want to go through here. We have stated the case for why redistricting matters, but we also want to show you why independent redistricting matters. So you have in front of you 60% blue, 40% red. We're looking at precincts. And on this slide, we've highlighted 2 case studies to demonstrate how redistricting has been used by politicians to keep control of congressional seats in Pennsylvania and Maryland, right? So in 2012, Pennsylvania Democrats received 51% of the votes for Congress, but won only 5 of its 18 seats, 27%. And then in 2016, you see Maryland Republicans received 37% of the votes for Congress, but won only 1 of its 8 congressional seats. And then in California, California's 5 out of 5 election cycles from 2002 to 2010, only 1 California congressional seat changed parties, and only 2 incumbents lost in all 253 races. So as a hypothetical, the graphic demonstrates how in a state that is 60% blue, 40% red, districts can be redrawn to favor the blue party and redrawn a different way to favor the red. Same districts, based on how they're drawn, can determine who's favored. So this is why the independent commissions were created. We remove the politics out of the process, and then we're able to focus on the data. Slide 8, please. So I want to make sure we differentiate between the different redistricting efforts. Many of you are involved in all of them, or more than just this one. We are one of many redistricting efforts going on in California. The commission is redrawing districts for state offices, while counties, cities, school districts, water districts, and community college districts are also redrawing their districts at the same time. And so we wanted to bring this to your attention because different efforts are happening simultaneously, and we know it can be confusing. But what we're going to talk to you today is about our state efforts. Okay, slide 9. So just a little bit of history. Prior to 2010, in California, legislators drew the lines. And so a couple of slides back, we saw what happened in Pennsylvania and Maryland. And then in 2008, the voters passed Prop 11, which was the Voters First Act, authorizing the creation of an independent commission to draw new district lines. In 2010, Prop 20, the Voters First Act for Congress, added the responsibility of drawing congressional districts to the commission. So our responsibility as a commission is to spread the word that our work did not end with being counted in the census, and to ensure we collect valuable community assistance in this process. The 2010 Redistricting Commission was California's inaugural independent commission. It was the first one, right? So now the 2020 Redistricting Commission is building upon that work and will leave behind detailed documents for the 2030 Commission when they perform their duties. Other states with independent commissions include, there's Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Michigan, Montana, and in Washington. So just a little bit about the commissioner selection, about how that process happened. The commissioners we all went through a really rigorous application process that attracted over 20,000 applicants. From that, 2,000 individuals completed the application. And so everything that was viable went forward in that process. And then there was 120 of the applicants that were screened and invited to an interview process. The California legislature then got to remove a certain number of candidates for consideration. They had those strikes, 12 for each party. And from there, the first 8 commissioners were selected through a lottery system. And I got to tell you, when that first ball dropped, I could not believe it, because I was the first ball drop of the lottery system, which was pretty cool. Up to that point, I kept thinking, I don't know. So yeah, so the lottery system was the first 8. And then from there, the final 6 members was then carefully selected by the first 8 commissioners, taking several considerations into account, including balancing out political party, geography, race, gender, and of course, expertise. So the commission will hold public meetings and accept input to assist in drawing the new maps. We have a little bit over a year to determine and approve the district maps by December 15th, 2021, when we must present final maps to the Secretary of the State. So the community outreach and input meetings are your opportunity to help us create a fair and transparent district boundary that will serve the best interests of your community. So just a little quick look at who we are as the 14 commissioners. You see all of us there in our glory shots, right? And so you see those where people are represented, Commissioner Isra Ahmad, Linda Akutagawa, Jane Anderson, Alicia Fernandez, Commissioners Neil Fornashari, Ray Kennedy, Commissioners Antonio Limons, Sarah Sadwani, Patricia Sinai, Commissioner Derek Taylor, Pedro Toledo, Commissioner Trina Turner, Commissioner Angela Vasquez, and Commissioner Russell Yee. And so those are your 2010 redistricting commissioners. And at this point, I'm going to have on our slide 12 still, the commissioner duties. Commissioner Vasquez will pick up the presentation from here.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Turner. So commissioner duties. After our education sessions, the commission is going to hold these public meetings and these are the meetings that we will use to accept public input through a variety of mechanisms in order to assist us in drawing the new electoral maps. However, as we said at the outset, you don't have to wait until our official public hearings begin to provide input to the commission. You and your communities can participate by submitting public input on our website, at one of our meetings, by using the Communities of Interest mapping tool, and we'll talk about that in a second, and by snail mailing your documents to us. All of your input will help the commission determine the boundaries of your community. The commission will draw maps for 4 different government bodies: Congress, so about 53 congressional districts; the Board of Equalization, about four Board of Equalization districts; 40 state Senate districts; and 80 assembly districts. The outreach zones that you can see here on this slide, from February to May, we are conducting sort of these educational redistricting basics, redistricting 101 presentations to educate you, the public, about the redistricting process. So we've divided the state up into zones, which you see here, and that's why you have Commissioner Turner and I here presenting to you in Zone F. There are 11 outreach zones, and we did this as a way to better manage our outreach efforts and really develop these kinds of relationships with you all. As trusted messengers, we really want to ensure that we are engaging communities that are, traditionally hard to reach, historically disenfranchised, or typically don't engage for a variety of reasons. And we, continue to want to set up these redistricting presentations with any additional groups that you have that you would like to connect us to. We're also going to have this presentation available in video form. So if we aren't able to present at your meetings, we want to make sure that you have this information in video form so that you can share it with your stakeholders and communities as well. Next slide. So the line drawing criteria. So we, the commission, have to draw the district lines based on a variety of weighted criteria. And so we legally are bound to follow these criteria when we're drawing the district boundaries. So the first one being that districts must be of equal population, and that's required by the US Constitution. Districts must comply with the Voting Rights Act to ensure that minorities, people from minority communities, have an equal opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. Districts must be contiguous or drawn so that all parts of the district are connected to each other. So you can't, we can't sort of include a community, a little circle over here and say that they are part of this larger community and not at all connected to each other by geography. Districts must minimize the division of cities, counties, neighborhoods, and communities of interest to the extent possible. Districts should be geographically compact. So the shapes will definitely begin to start to look a little funky as we are weighing other criteria. Again, these are weighted criteria, but they shouldn't look, they should be generally compact. And where practicable, each Senate district should be comprised of 2 complete and adjacent assembly districts, and Board of Equalization districts should be composed of 10 complete and adjacent state Senate districts. Next slide, please. All right, communities of interest. This is super important. When drawing maps, we also have to be mindful of communities of interest. So what is a community of interest? Communities of interest are defined as a contiguous population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for the purposes of its effective and fair representation. So, for example, this includes areas in which the people share similar living standards, use the same transportation methods, have similar work opportunities, or have access to the same media. People can belong to multiple communities of interest. So there are some ways, these are some of the ways that you can describe your community. It can be geographic. So this is my community, these are my neighbors. You can use certain boundaries. So I consider my community to the high school 3 blocks away. Or you can use landmarks, so such as the school or other geographic landmarks. But really communities of interest are defined by common interest and then described by geography. And I'm sure you'll have lots of questions about exactly what that means, and we can get into that in Q&A. So next slide, please. All right, so participating in the process. So some of our community partners have put together toolkits that give your communities tips on how to participate. And these are just some of the tips that you can use to help your communities get involved. So first, familiarize yourself with the criteria. Understand the basic rules and concepts affecting redistricting that the commission is legally bound to weigh when we are drawing district boundaries. Organize your community. Find your neighbors and organizations interested in redistricting, especially those sharing your views, right? Communities of interest, who shares your views and your values. Create coalitions with a set of principles that sort of bind you all together. Clarify your goals. So what issues do you and your neighbors care about? Again, communities of interest. What do you care about? How does influencing the maps in redistricting help advance your cause? Testify at meetings. So provide input about your community. The more, the better. We want to hear about your community. We want to know who you are and where you are. So present maps, community profiles, and impact stories that tell your community story and tell us where you are. And finally, advocate for your community. So people are the experts in their own experiences. You know better than us what your community looks like and who it includes and where the boundaries are. Define your community or someone else will. Next slide, please. All right, so we are very excited to have this year, or this iteration of redistricting, our Draw My Community tool, or the COI tool, or you'll even hear us in meetings refer to it as the COI tool. The state agency, the California Statewide Database, has created a tool to help you draw your community boundaries. So you don't have to do this alone. We have technology, if that's accessible to you and your communities, that will assist you in helping you tell your story about where your community is. The Community of Interest tool looks very similar to Google Maps and has a feature that allows you to zoom in and around the boundaries of your particular community to draw a map. And then this map can be submitted to the commission as public testimony to help us redraw your districts. The tool also asks you the following questions to help the commission assess your community. So it asks for your name. It asks you to tell us about your community. What are your shared interests? What brings you together? What is important to your community? Are there nearby areas you want to be in a district with? Nearby areas you don't want to be in a district with? Why or why not? And then finally, is there anything else, it's just sort of a free form, if there's anything else you want to tell us about your community. Thank you. Next slide. So another important piece that is sort of playing into our redistricting process. So on July 17th, 2020, the California Supreme Court ruled that the commission should have until December 15th, 2021 to submit its map to the California Secretary of State due to the delay in releasing of the census results. So I'm sure many of you who have been tracking census and the litigation around the census, it's caused quite a bit of delays. So because of that, the Supreme Court has allowed the Redistricting Commission until December 15th, 21 to submit its maps. If the census results are delayed beyond July 31st, 2021, the commission's deadline will be adjusted accordingly. So as we all know, COVID-19 has delayed and upended many things, including our ability to access census data to help us draw district maps. So these timelines may be different than what you've heard previously. So wanted to just make sure that you were aware of our new working deadline. Next slide. Okay, so what's our timeline? The US Census Bureau has updated us about when the census data will become available, and we've adjusted the timeline, as I said, based on that. So February through May, we will be doing presentations like this to ensure that our communities are educated about what is happening and why it is happening. June through September, our public input meetings begin. So these are community of interest meetings. This is a super important part of the timeline for you and your communities. This is where we want to see maps. We want to hear public testimony. We want to get your narratives of who your community is, where they are located. That these hearings are incredibly important. July 31st is when we expect the census data to be received by the state of California. August 31st is when we, the commission, expect to get the data. And then September through October is when we will begin actually drawing lines. So we will begin to draw lines for pre-maps, for draft maps. In October, we plan to release, the first draft of these maps, and we expect and hope for a lot of public input on those maps. And we'll continue to do through November public input meetings and line drawing sessions as we continue to refine these maps based on feedback. In December, we hope to release our final maps, and by December 15th, we will deliver our maps to the Secretary of State per the California State Supreme Court deadline. Last slide. All right, so how do you get in touch with us? Because we have a constitutional mandate to get the new maps approved and submitted by a certain date, we're going to continue to do these educational meetings prior to going out for public input and using that information to draw new maps. So if you want a presentation like this by one of the commissioners, please feel free to email Marcy Kaplan. She is the staff person at the commission who is helping coordinate all of this. Her email address is here. And yes, please continue to follow us on We Draw the Lines, california.org, and on our social media. We have a new great communications director, and we are going to be on your social media feeds, I promise.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Pastor Trina, for presenting this presentation. I feel it's really good and pertinent information for our leaders and our community members and our organizers, whatever it may be. It's very, very important information. So like Angela mentioned, if you want a presentation, make sure to reach out to Marcy. So I'm going to go ahead and stop share the screen and open it up for Q&As. Feel free to drop some questions in the chat box here. Does anyone have any questions? I haven't seen any as of yet, but let's see. If not, you can unmute yourself and feel free to ask as well. So.
Hey, Teresa, this is Christian from the Latino Community Foundation. Angela and Pastor Trina, thank you so much for this presentation. I would put myself on video, but I'm having a bad hair day. A quick question about the, when it comes time to the public comment, and I'm sure this information is somewhere, but I figure I just ask, how is the commission going to deal with language translations? Because I'm interested in bringing as many people as possible, but just trying to figure out how that works. So I figured I would ask that.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Good to hear you anyway. I'm sure your hair is fine. We have had a lot of input in regards to language access, and we have a plan for sure for all of the languages that was made available for the census. We will also have translation for those same areas. And then we're also working on a process. What's the time period, Angela, if it's one of the languages that we're not translating for? I think with advanced notification, we're going to work with our community partners to ensure that there still is language translation available.
I don't recall the timeline off the top of my head, but I'm making a note, Christian, and I will confirm with our staff and get back to you on the exact advance notice timeline that we have decided. I'm really glad you asked this question, because we have had, as Commissioner Turner said, we've had extensive conversations. We really want to make sure that language accessibility is a top priority. So let me get back to you on the advance notice for, I think, sort of additional languages, but for sure, especially in this region, Spanish, we will be fully prepared to take public comment in Spanish.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like we have another question from Susan. California is expected to lose a seat or two. Is that correct? Do you know in what geographic area the loss will occur?
Yeah, we continue to hear that, believe that, know that, just because we're out in the community like you. Until those actual numbers are turned in and finalized, we won't be able to confirm if there was a loss, and won't know where it is until then.
Okay. And here's another question from Octavio. I read somewhere that California may lose at least one congressional seat. How does that look so far?
Yes, Octavio. Same response. Wish it was different. We don't want to, kind of go off on our own. Until we get those numbers, we really don't know and should not speculate formally.
Does anyone have any further questions? Feel free to jump in.
While you're thinking of questions, I just want to add, because there could potentially be that loss of seat, it'll make it even more important than ever that we absolutely tell our loved ones, our family members, our communities to make sure we have to help them understand the importance of redistricting and that their voice matters. And this isn't an occasion where you just want to rely on that one person that your cousin that always does that kind of thing. We want all of the voices. And so that community of interest tool has been designed to where it's really easy to use. If you have access at all, please, I think it goes live on Monday. On the 8th is the scheduled time frame for it to go live. Please, and it's very intuitive. When you go in, just like they said, much like a Google map, you go in, if you have boundaries, put it in. If you just want to say, keep me and my folk together, and here's how I describe them, you're able to just put that verbiage in as well. So that's the first important part. And then the second, equally as important, is we also want to hear your voices directly in the hearings so that you can prepare the people that you're in relationship with to come on and say, you know what, I promise it's just Angela and Trina and 12 other folk. They're really easy to talk to. Go on and just talk about your experience, what you've found, pains of the past, or what your hopes are for the future, and how you want your lines drawn to represent you. So to the degree you can do that, that would be amazing.
Thank you, Pastor Trina. Anyone would like to add? Okay, if not, that concludes our meeting and presentation for today. We want to thank our partners and Angela and Pastor Trina for taking the time to present this really important information, and also the California Citizens Redistricting Committee and our partners. So this is very helpful information, and I look forward to working with many of you again in other presentations and meetings. Thank you.
Okay, good night. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.